Alright, let's do this. Where are we? Alright, I think I know where we are. Wait, what? Where are we? Wait, did we do that already? So what are we up to? Are we up to here? Oh, did we get to there? Oh. So what do we need to get up to today? Wait, what? Oh, wait, what? There? I have no clue. What's the last daf that we did? I can't remember. Alright, hopefully I'm recording the right daf, and hopefully I didn't record this one yet. I'm like a little bit all over the place. I just needed to help out somebody for like an hour and a half. I'm in a rush now. Alright, let's do this. Okay. Where am I? Because okay, yeah, alright, yeah, alright. So oh gosh, wow. Okay, let's do it. I was not planning to be running this late. Okay, I'm on Daf Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph, about 15-20 lines into the page. Hopefully I'm where I'm supposed to be. And at the 2 dots, O Yigmu Melachtan Vitlu Shnei Slaim. So we had said that if you have these workers who kind of like flake in the middle, so they have. How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Ayin Zayin, Daf 77. BavaMetzia, friends, your friends. Okay, so if you have these people that are flaking out in the middle, so they can always finish the job and then get their 2 sellers the full amount. Pshita, isn't this obvious that if they finish the job, they would get their full amount? Well, it's talking about where the price of their work went up. Now, this is according to the Chachamim who say Yad Poyel Ala Yonah, right? Because, right, there was machlokas between the Chachamim and Reb Dosa, right? So the Chachamim had said that, for example, if their agreement was that, to weave this garment, it was going to be 2 sellers, okay? And then they flake in the middle. And now, in order to finish the second half of the garment, the balabais is going to have to pay 6 dinars, which is a seller and a half. So according to the Chachamim, the balabais is going to have to pay extra. The workers are still going to get, the flakers are still going to get their seller, their full seller. Whereas Reb Dosa said Yad Poel Ala Tachtona, that if they flake, then they get the if it's going to cost a seller and a half to finish the job, well, then they're only going to get half a seller because the balabais doesn't have to pay for it. So this is according to the Chachamim who say Yad Poel Ala Yonah, that the workers kind of have the stronger negotiating position. So now what we're saying is the Aikar Avidta. Now, in the meantime, the price of labor went up. So originally, the agreement was for 2 sellers for the garment. They flaked halfway through. So according to Chacham, they get their seller. Now, if they come back and finish the job, we're saying that they get their other seller. Now, isn't it obvious that they would get their other seller? So the scenario here is that the reason why it's not so obvious is because in the meantime, the price of labor went up. So now, according to the Chacham, who say Yad Poel Ala Yonah, that the workers have the better negotiating position, so maybe they should be able to negotiate and say, well, now we want, the price of labor. We agreed to 2 sellers when that was the price of labor, but the price of labor has gone up. We now want a seller and a half to finish it. Ve'imru Poyalim, right? So the price of labor went up. So now the workers are saying, wait, we don't want to work for 2 sellers anymore. We want, 2.5 sellers. And then the balabais went and he smooth talked them into coming back. So I may have thought, okay, well, if the workers have the better negotiating position, so they would be able to say to the balabais, we figured, okay, if you're going to smooth talk us into coming back, you would also give us 2.5 sellers and not just 2 sellers. So we say, no, the balabais can say to them, no, I'll get you epis to eat, epis to drink, but nish, you're not getting 2.5 sellers. Seller no saying loim seller. If the amount of work that it's going to take to finish the garment is 1 seller, so the flakers get their full payment of a seller. Pshita, isn't this obvious that if they did half the job and they got paid a sela and it's gonna be another sela to finish the job, so somebody else will get that sela and the flakers get the first sela. So isn't that obvious? Latzricha dizol avidta me'ikara. Well, no. The chiddush is for a scenario where actually initially they got paid extra, right? Initially, the going rate for a worker to weave a garment was, so a sela of course is 4 dinars or 4 zuz, right? So dinars and zuz are the same. So initially really it was 3 zuz to do, for each half of it, meaning 6 zuz total, 3, and then you can kind of divide that in half for 3 zuz per half. But he paid them extra, right? Really, initially labor was cheaper. Half of the garment would have been 3 zuzes. But he nonetheless, you saw that they wanted more. So he said, fine, Beseder, I will pay you a sela, 4 zuzes. In the meantime, the price of labor went up. So basically, when we're saying that the amount that it would cost to finish the garment is a sela, that's in today's market. So meaning initially we figured like, okay, nothing changed, everything's static, right? So if they were hired for 2 selas, they flaked after 1 sela, and he's able to hire somebody else for another sela. So like, okay, they would get their full payment because they'll just pay somebody a sela for the rest. The thing is that things are a little bit more dynamic than that, which is that initially when the work started and he agreed to pay them, let's say 1 sela per half, you could divide it up that way in a certain sense, and you can kind of think about it that way, 1 sela per half. The truth is that he was paying them 25%, or I guess depending if it's milgo or milavar, but he was basically paying them, let's say a third, right? Meaning if the going rate was 3 zuzes and he paid them 4 zuzes, so he's paying them like, a third above an extra third of their, is it 25% above, or is it, 25% above, you can maybe say that. 4 is 25% above 3, I guess you can maybe say. So you paid them 25% above the going rate. Now the price of labor has increased. And and when we say that there's a sela to finish the job, it's a sela in today's market after the increase. So guess what these people want? These people are saying, well, actually, now we want a 25%, we want to receive 25% above the market rate, just like initially we received 25% above the market rate, right? If nothing would have changed, then it would have been, 3 zuzes to finish the garment, but things went up. It's now 4 zuzes to finish the garment. And they want to say, well, just like initially the price of labor was 3, but you paid us 4. So now that the price of labor is 4, we want you to pay us, as we know from the Chumash, it would probably be, a fifth. What's a fifth of 4? 0.8? I think maybe. So we want you to pay us 4.8 selas, zuzes, to finish it, right? 0.8, 1.6, 2.4, 3.2, 4. I think I did that right. Oh yeah, it's also kind of like 8 times 5 is 40. Akoponim. No. Wait, what? No, so then 8 relative to 4. Wait, no, I'm confused now. 25% above. No, so what would be the total? Oh, no, I did that wrong. No, it would be a third. A third of so 1 1/3. So 5 1/3 is, yes, that 1 1/3 is 25% above. If the market rate is 4, 25% above that, I guess, would be 5 1/3. Is that right? What's 5 1/3 divided by 4? I don't know. Do we have any mathematicians over here? All right, as I said, I'm in a rush. We got to go weiter. And in the end, where am I? So initially, labor was cheap. Right, initially, labor was 3 zuzes per half, and he paid them 4 zuzes per half. The sofa ikra avidta, and now when we say that there's a sela left of work to do, that's after the price, the prices of workers have gone up, and the cost of workers have gone up. V'kom b'tfei zuzah, and now it's 1 zuz more, which is why it's now a sela to finish it, and not just 3 zuzes. Ma'odetema, you may have thought, Amrile, that the workers say to the Balabais, Tfeizuza Amatlon, Tfeizuza Havlon. Well, initially you had promised us an extra zuz, so give us an extra zuz now. So the truth is, I guess that they want just an extra zuz, not necessarily an extra 25%. That makes the math easier. So Kamashmalan the Amrlu, then he says to them, Ki Amriluchu Tfeizuze Delo Avakim Luchu Hashta Kim Luchu. Look, when I initially said to you, 3/4 of a zuz, it was because when I initially gave you, four zuzes, you didn't necessarily, Rashi says something weird, like you weren't necessarily sure that you were like worth it or something like that. But now that it's the price, now that it's the going rate anyways, like you're getting 4 zuz. I don't know, something weird like that. What does Rashi say? You didn't know that you would be fit to receive a whole seller. And I was able to hire you, I guess, at a seller. And you wouldn't want less than that. So I said, okay, if you want a seller, I'll give you a seller. But now, everybody is receiving a seller, and therefore, you'll receive a seller as well. I don't know. Basically, initially you wanted a seller, I gave you a seller. Now everybody's getting a seller, you're also getting a seller. Seller is what you want, seller is what you get. We're going weiter. Reb Dosa Omer says, Reb Dosa, Shomen Loin is Masha Osa Lehi Osos. Reb Dosa says, Yad Poel Ala Tachtona, right? And therefore, if what's left over is a seller and a half, well then they're only going to receive half a seller. Right, it doesn't have to come out of the Balabais' pocket. So if Dosa Omer Shaman Loin is Masha Osalei Osos, that we evaluate for them what is in the future to be done. Yafe Shisha Dinarim, if there was still 6 dinars out of the 8 dinars left to be done, no Salem shekels, and he only gives them a shekel, i.e. 2 dinars. Because he holds that the workers have the lower, of the weaker negotiating position. Or they can, of course, finish the work themselves, and they'll get 2 sellers. Pshita, isn't it obvious they would get 2 sellers? Lo tzricha dizal avidta. Well, it's talking about where the price of labor actually went lower. So actually, initially, when he had hired them for 2 sellers, which is, I guess, like 1 seller per half, you could think about it. So really, the market rate was 5 zuzes per half, right? 1.25 sellers per half, but they were willing to work for less. They were willing to work for 1 seller for less. And now the price of the labor went down. Okay, so now everybody's accepting 1 seller, right? It's a saturated market, and whereas before it would have cost a seller 1.25 per half. Now you can find a worker for a seller. So the Balabayas wanted to jump on that train and say, after all, according to Reb Dosa, Yad Poel Ala Tachtona, the worker has the weaker negotiating position. So the Balabayas said he would be able to take advantage of the situation and say, look, before I was willing to pay you, before I paid you a seller, which was 1 zuz less than what everybody was getting, now that everybody's getting a seller, I want to pay you 3/4 of a zuz. So we say, no, he still pays 4 zuz. Right, so Pshita, it's obvious that if there's a seller left, then he would pay them, a seller for the work that they've done. It's talking about a scenario where initially the price for each half of the garment would come out to a seller in 1/4, but then the price of labor went down, and now workers are receiving 1 zuz less. Now he had initially not given them the going market rate of a seller and 1/4, but rather he gave them 1 zuz less to begin with, which was a seller. The Imar Balabais, now the Balabais was shying away from hiring them. The Azul Poalim Ufaisuhu, and the Poalim said that smooth talked their way into finishing the job. I may have thought that the Balabais would be able to say that I figured that just like initially you gave it to me, right, you're willing to work for a zuz less, so I thought now as well you'd be willing to work for a zuz less, and it would be 3 zuz for the rest, not 4 zuz. They said no. When we smooth talked our way back in, we weren't interested in receiving 1 zuz less again. We want to receive the full seller, but we figured that we would do extra good work. We would throw in some extra useless features that you don't need and don't work well, but it's going to be great. Sela nosein loem sela. If there is a sela left over, so he gives them a sela. So pshita, that's obvious. If there's a sela left over and they worked a sela, so they should receive a sela. So Amrafuna Breda of Nasan Lotzricha the Ozilu Inu Gabe Zuza Meikar. Wait, what just happened? Oh no, oops, I messed up the previous one. Let's read the previous one again. If they finish their work, then they'll get, I screwed this one up. Sorry. They're all very similar. Not very similar. I screwed it up. Sorry. This is talking about right? So I backed up. If they finish their work, then they'll get their full 2 slime. Obviously, if they finish their work, they'll get their full 2 slime. The thing is that the price of labor has now gone down. And now the balabayis is like, wait, why should I actually hire you back for another seller for the half? The price of labor has gone down. I can get somebody for 3 zuzes to do it. Right, so pshita l'tzricha d'zol avidta, that the price of labor went down, and now for the second half he can pay 3 zuz rather than the full seller. So ve'emor balabais, now the balabais was shying away because he didn't want to hire them. Let him hire somebody else. Why should he pay 2 sellers when he can end up paying a seller in 3 quarters? The Pa'alim then convinced him to keep them. So I might think that the Balabais could have said, wait, but the price of labor went down. Why should I pay you the full seller? That they said to him, but yeah, we're going to do really good work for you. We're going to build you things that you don't need. But we'll throw them in for free because you're paying us extra. Pay us extra and we'll throw in some useless stuff for free. Seller, no sinoim seller. So if there's a seller left, so then he pays them a seller. So pshita is obvious. This is what I explained earlier. That this is talking about a scenario where initially, wait, where am I? Where am I? So seller no loim seller. Right, I'm starting over. So if there is a seller left, so then he pays them a seller. So pshita, this is obvious, right? Meaning initially they were supposed to work for 2 sellers. They did 50% of the work. That's 1 seller. And if he could hire another person for the rest of the work for a seller, so obviously they should receive half of the payment, a seller. So Amr Funa Breid of Nasan, the scenario is the Ozilu Inu Gabe Zuza. No, that really the price of workers was 1 1/4 sellers, but they were willing to work for, it would be 1 1/4 sellers per half. They were willing to work for 3 zuz per half. Okay, so, but, what am I, wow, Cheveh, I'm really sorry. I don't know, my brain is, I wouldn't say it's not working, it's working fine. I think I'm just really out of it. But I'm rushing, that's what it is. I'm rushing. I got thrown off. Yeah. So somebody asked me to help them out quickly. I knew it wasn't going to be quick. Right before I was about to record Babylon Talmud, but it was obvious to me it wasn't going to be quick, and it was not quick. I had to write a lot of code for him, and it took about an hour and a half, and now I'm rushing. So where are we? So lo tzricha de ozilu inu gabe zuza meikar. Right. So initially, the price of each half would have been a seller and a quarter, right? But they were willing to do it for a seller, for 1 zuz less, okay? And now basically when we say that there's 1 seller outstanding in the work, it's because the price of workers has gone down. So whereas initially it would have cost a seller and a quarter to finish the garment, now it only costs a seller to finish the garment. So the price of labor has gone down. So the Balabais wants to argue, well, since the price of labor has gone down, so initially you were willing to work for a seller, why I should only have to pay you now 3 zuz. So, yeah, that's correct. Right, so gabe zuze meikar. So the zulu inu gabe zuze meikar. So initially it would have been a seller and a quarter per half, but they were willing to work for 1 zuz less. But then the price of labor went down, so that now when we say that there's only a seller left, it's because that right in the current market it would only now cost a seller to finish it, not a seller and a quarter. So maybe the Balabais, maybe the Balabais can say, well, hey, initially you were willing to accept one zuz less than the market rate. So how about I'll pay you one zuz less than the market rate, not a full seller, but 3/4 of a seller. Kamashman da'amrele, that they say to him, ki amrana lach bebatzer zuza tilhava kimlach hashta kimlach. Look, when we said that when we initially were willing to go for less than a zuz, it's because you wouldn't have been able to get it for a seller. So we said, okay, it's fine. We're willing to work for a seller. But now that things cost a seller, and that's what you were willing to pay. I mean, you weren't willing to pay a seller in a quarter. You're only willing to pay a seller. So we said, okay, Beseder, we'll work for a seller. But now that everything's a seller, so I mean, that's what you were willing to spend. So continue to spend it and pay us that. Rav says, Rav Dosa, that the halacha is like Reb Dosa, right? So now Reb Dosa had said, Yad Poel al Hatachtona, right? Reb Dosa had said that, for example, if you have a worker who says that he's going to weave a garment for 2 sellers and then flakes halfway, and it's going to cost 6 dinars to finish it, so they would only get 1 shekel. You see what I did there? In one sentence, there's sellers, dinars, and shekels. Do you have that? I feel like it's like the multiplication tables in like 4th grade. It's like you got to know, 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 times 3 is 18, and 4 times 3 is like, you got to have that stuff. I hope I'm getting those things right. It's like your shekel, seller, dinar tables, So 2 sellers. So if it was initially 2 sellers, but then they flake halfway, but it would cost 6 dinars to finish, which is a seller and a half. So then basically, out of the 2 sellers, they'd only receive half a seller, which is a shekel, because it's 2 dinars, which is half a seller, in 1 shekel, which is half a seller. Amrav halacha Reb Dosa. So Rav says the halacha is like Reb Dosa, that Yad Poel ala Tachtona, and they would only receive 2 dinars if they flake halfway, if it costs 6 dinars to finish the other half. Would Rav really say that the halacha is like Reb Dosa, who says Yad Poel ala Tachtona? But Rav says Poel yochol lachzor bo afilu b'chatzi hayom. But Rav says that a worker can flake halfway through the day without penalty. That if a worker flakes halfway through the day, he gets paid for half of the day. There's no, but it's going to cost more to hire other people, so we take it out of his pay. No. A poil, yad poil ala el yona, that a poil can stop working halfway through the day without penalty. Maybe you'll say, look, Rav says the halacha is like Reb Dosa. Reb Dosa makes a chilik between schirus and kablanus, between a day worker, and Rav says that by a day worker he can leave halfway through the day without penalty. And we're saying that Rav holds like Reb Dosa, so maybe Reb Dosa Taka says that by a day worker, Yad Poel ala Elyona, that the worker has the better negotiating position. But when we're talking about the garment and weaving a garment, that's a kablan, that's a consultant, a contractor who gets paid per job for the job done, and there Yad Poel ala Tachtona. So Rav says the halacha is like Reb Dosa by a kablan, that Yad Poel ala Tachtona, and the halacha is like, and also at the same time, the halacha is that a poil can flake halfway through the day without penalty, and that would also be in line with Reb Dosa, because Reb Dosa would agree with that halacha by a poil, but so the Reb Dosa would make a chilik between a poil and a kablan. A poil Yad Poil ala Elyona. By a kablan, it would be Yad Poil ala Tachtona. Okay. So maybe there's a nafkamina between schirus and kablanus, between a day worker and a kablan. But is that really the case, that Reb Dosa makes a chilik between schirus and kablanus? Is that really true? Okay, somebody who hires a poil, a day worker, right, and then halfway through the day, unfortunately, there was an ones. He has to leave. Somebody died. He got a fever. Whatever it was, he had to cut the day short. Okay, look, it's an ones. What do you want me to tell you? If he's a day worker, nosin lo scharo, you give him his half, for his full wage for half of the day for the amount that he worked. In kablanu, if he is a contractor, so nosin lo kablanuso. Again, you give him half of whatever the agreement was, because after all it was an ones, there was nothing you can do. So now money. Who is the author of this brisa? Ilem Rabbanon. if you can say it's the Rabbanan, now the Rabbanan say, Yad Poyel Ala Elyona, that the worker has the upper hand. So meaning you wouldn't have to have a case of ones in order for him to get his full payment for what he worked. Even if he just flaked, he just says, I'm out, and even if he just said, I'm out, he would still get paid in full for what he did. There's no saying, yeah, but now it's going to cost me more to hire somebody else. No, he gets paid in full for what he did. So now this Bryce is saying, Dafka, because it was ones that Yad Poyel Ala Elyona. But otherwise, he would say Yad Poyel Ala Tachtona. So it doesn't sound like the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan would say in all cases Yad Poyel Ala Elyona. So Elaim Rabbanan, if you say it's the rabbis, my area is Shama Shemes Lo Meis. So why are we saying Davka that somebody died or that he got a fever, so there was an ones and that's why he gets paid in full? The honest. Kilo honest nami. Ham Rabbanan Yad Poyel Ala Elyona. Even if there wouldn't have been a situation of ones, the Rabbanan would say that he would get paid in full because Yad Poyel Ala Elyona. Elav Reb Desai. Rather, who must be the author of this brisa? Well, the other option is Reb Dosa. So, and we're saying, we're saying, if it's a Sochir Nosin Lo Scharo, Kablon Nosin Lo Kablunu. So we're saying that both by a Kablon and by a Sochir, Davka, right, to say, we're putting them in the same boat and saying that if there was ones, they get paid in full. If it's not ones, then they wouldn't get paid in full. Because Yad Poyel Ala Tachtona, whether it is a Kablon, whether it is a Sochir. So we see that there is no distinction, and therefore if Rav holds like Reb Dosa, well, Reb Dosa would say that even by a poil, if not for the fact that it was a ones, then he would not get paid in full. So how could Rav say both that the halacha is like Reb Dosa and also that a worker can just flake and still get his full payment? How could those things are contradictory? Vishmamina lo shani leili Reb Dosa ben schiris le kablonos. The Reb Dosa does not make a difference. It doesn't make a distinction between schiris and kablonos. He treats them the same. And if he says Yad Poyel Ala Tachtona by Kablonus, he would say this the Zel Bazach by Schirus. Rav Nachman by Yitzchok says Rav Nachman by Yitzchok B'Davra Avud V'Divra Akol. Oh, so Rav Nachman by Yitzchok says, wait, hold your horses. And that Bryce is talking about a Davra Avud, something that the Balabais was really relying upon this worker, because if the worker doesn't do the work, the thing is going to get ruined, right? For example, a driver who needs to drive something for a chasana. If he misses the chasana, forget about it. It's pointless. So, so in situations, or the flax that was soaking, that if you leave it there for too long, it's going to get ruined. So by a Davra Avud, you have to have a good reason. And everybody agrees with that. So it's not necessarily Reb Dosa, even the Chacham would agree that by Davra Avud, you have to have a good reason. Tanan, we learn in our Mishnah, Kol Amishane Yodo Al Tachtona, V'chol Achozebo Yodo Al Tachtona. So we said that anybody who changes, makes a change, Yodo Al Tachtona, okay, fine. Anybody who's choser also has the worst negotiating position, the weaker negotiating position. Okay, so when it comes to somebody who makes a change, he has the weaker negotiating position. Okay, basically our Mishnah is saying like Rabbi Yehuda that we're going to get a refresher about tomorrow on Daf Ayin Ches Amud Beis, that with the dyer who was meant to dye something red, but he dyed it black, and then we say, well, if the value of the wool is more expensive than the value of the expense of the dyer, so he pays the lower value, the value of the expense. If the expense is higher, so he pays the value of the wool. And so okay, fine. So Kamashana Yodo Al Tachtona is basically saying that, so we have the Mishnah basically going like Rabbi Yehuda. Fine. Okay. What is anybody who's choser bo? What does that even mean? Anybody who's choser bo, so he has the weaker negotiating position. What's that talking about? So lav la'asuye poil uchu Reb Dosa. If you look in our Mishnah on Ayin Vav, on Ayin Hey Amud Beis, so when the Mishnah says on the bottom line of Daf Ayin Hey Amud Beis, hasoicher su'umonin v'chazu ben yodam al tachtona, that, and the assumption is that that's talking about a kablon. That a kablon, if he flakes halfway, so he has the weaker negotiating position. That's the opinion of Reb Dosa, who says that that he has the weaker negotiating position. And when it says anybody who's choser, who flakes, is yodal tachtona, that's saying not just a kablon, but also a poil. Hopefully nobody's at the door. I'm expecting somebody at some point today. I don't know. Whatever. If somebody's at the door, they'll just have to knock louder. I will open it this time because I'm expecting somebody. All right. So where am I? So we want to say that is including that also by a poil. Reb Dosa would also say Yado al ha tachtona. So we see that according to Reb Dosa, Yado al tachtona both by a kablan as well as by a sochir, and therefore if Rav is saying that the halacha is like Reb Dosa, well, then it would be both by a kablan as well as a socher. So then how could Rav say that somebody who flakes halfway, a poil, a socher who flakes halfway through the day, still gets his full payment? Rav Dosa would say Yoda al tachtona. So again, Tanan kol mishana Yoda al tachtona v'chol chozabo Yoda al tachtona. Bishlam kol mishana Yoda al tachtona d'sasam tan krabuda. Ella, this is what we got up to. Kol chozabo Yoda al tachtona la'asuya. My what's kol chozabo Yoda al tachtona? Lav la'asuya poil. Reb Dosa? Is it not saying that Reb Dosa would say that also by a poil Yoda ala tachtona? So Ela Reb Dosa taite ka'amar. Rather, Reb Dosa says says that. So Reb Dosa says two things. He says that a poil is Yoda ala tachtona, as well as a kablon is oichit Yoda al hatachtona. V'Rav sover lekavosi b'chada, and Rav agrees with him, holds like him when it comes to a Kablon ufalagoli b'chada, but he does not agree with Reb Dosa when it comes to a sochir. By a sochir he says poil yado ala elyona. Ibay same alternatively kol chozabo yado al tachtona l'chidetanya. Alternatively, when the Mishnah says kol chozabo yado al tachtona, it is not talking about schirus, and it is not saying that by schirus Reb Dosa says yado al tachtona. It's talking about something else entirely. So therefore, in our Mishnah, we're saying that a kablon Yado al tachtona, and that's Reb Dosa. By schirus, the Mishnah doesn't talk about schirus. So what does it mean? Kol achozabo Yado al tachtona, l'chidetanya, like the following brisa. Kol achozabo keitzad. What's it talking about? Anybody who's chozer? If Shimon sells a field to Ruvain for 1,000 zuzes, v'nosan lo mein masayim zuz, and Ruvain doesn't pay him, the full 1,000 zuzes up front. That's a lot of money, but he pays a down payment of 200 zuz, 20%. Bizman sha moicher chozer bo. So now somebody reneges. So if it is the seller, if it's Shimon who reneges, so and he has the weaker negotiating position, yad lokeach alo alyona. Shimon, the seller, has the weaker negotiating position. Reuven, the buyer, has the stronger negotiating position. Ratza omer lo tein li ma'osai. Reuven can now choose. He could say, I want my cash back. O tein li karka keneged ma'osai. Or, instead, I don't want my cash back. I want property. I want 200 zuz worth of property. And that will be my refund. Me'echon magbeo, and where would he collect this property? Mina idis, from the best fields, from Shimon's best fields. Now, if it is the buyer, if it's Reuven the buyer who reneges, Yad mocher al Yona, well then Shimon has the stronger negotiating position. Shimon, if he wants, he could say, okay, you flaked, here's your money, take it back. Or if Shimon wants, he can say, take back some property that's equal to 200 zuzes. And where would Reuven collect this property? Minazibor is from Shimon's worst fields, right? Because Reuven flaked. Beggars can't be choosers. If you want to collect land, collect from Shimon's worst lands. So you see. Whoever flakes, whether it's Shimon the seller, Reuven the buyer, whoever flakes is going to be in the weaker negotiating position. Reb Shimon Gamliel Omer says, Reb Shimon Gamliel Malamdin Osin Shelo Yachzru. Actually, we nudge them so that they shouldn't, that nobody should be flaking. Keitzad, how so? Kosev lo, Shimon writes to Reuven, Ani Pleni ben Pleni, I so and so, the son of so and so, Machaiti Sode Plonis Lefloni Belev Zuz. I sold a certain field to a certain fellow for 1,000 zuz. Now so far, he's paid me 200 of them. And in terms of the other 800, I'm converting it to a loan, and he now owes me 800 zuzes, ches meo zuz, Kona, and now Reuven is Kona the field, done. It's Reuven's now. He already paid 200 zuz. He owns the field. He now has a debt to Shimon for another 800 zuzes. Eventually, over time, Reuven will pay back. Will pay back this debt of 800 zuzes to Shimon. We said earlier, Me'echan Magbio. Where do we collect from? Min ha'idis, from Shimon's best fields. But why would Reuven be entitled to collect from Shimon's best fields? Right? Meaning, Shimon was selling Reuven his field for 1,000 zuzes. Reuven paid Shimon 200 zuzes. Shimon then flakes. He says, forget about it. So now we say so now Reuven can choose if he wants to be paid back in cash or with fields, and if he wants property, then he'll get Shimon's best fields. Why? Shimon owes Reuven 200 zuzes, right? Reuven gave him 200 zuzes. Shimon now owes Reuven the 200 zuzes. And if Reuven's going to be collecting from karka, from property, so he's be'etzim a bal chov, he's a creditor, and creditors collect from beinonis, not ziboris. Right, so Amar Mar, we said earlier, Me'echa Magbio, where does he collect from? Mina'idis, from Shimon's best fields, if Shimon flakes. Because it enters your mind, initially we assume that it's talking about Shimon's best fields. But isn't Reuven be'etzim a creditor? It's not balchov dino bebeinonis, that a creditor gets paid with medium fields, not the spitz. And more so, and also, why are we talking about other fields over here? Shimon was selling his field to Reuven for 1,000 zuz. Reuven pays 200 zuz. Shimon then flakes. Why are we talking about other fields of Shimon's? He's selling a field. Why doesn't Reuven just say, look, either I'll take cash or I'll take 200 zuz worth of this field that I'm looking to buy, right? If you're flaking and I already paid you 200 zuz, so at least let me take 200 zuz of this particular property. Why are we talking about? We look around, we find what other properties he has. He can take his choice from his best ones. Why does he just take the 200 zuz payment from the property that he's buying, or that he thought he was buying? Says Nachman Bar Yitzchak b'diuk. That's taka what happens. Reuven, if he wants to get paid with property, he would get paid with 200 zuz worth of the property that he was looking to buy. The thing is, he would be able to walk around the property and find the best parts of that property and get paid from there, right? Some properties, some parts would be better than others for different things, right? So maybe parts are rockier, some parts are not usable, some parts, whatever, need some work. So he could choose which parts of the field that he wants. That's what he's saying. So he can collect from the best parts of the field. Fine. Rav Achabre, the Rav Ika Amar says, Rav Ika afilu tema me'idis t'nechasav. Says Rav Ika, you can even say that it's talking about from Shimon's best property in general. How come? Because Staman dezovin ara ba'al fazuzei ozil mozil ozule mozil mzabin nechasav v'avale kinizok v'tanana nizokin shamiloin be'idis. Because Reuven's it's a big investment, a field for 1,000 zuzes. That's a big investment, and Reuven doesn't necessarily have the capital to buy a big expensive field. As it is, he's not paying it for in full. He's putting down a down payment. It's a lot of money. How's Reuven going to come up with this money for this big investment? He's going to sell things. He has things that he's going to sell in order to come up with this cash, and he's not going to sell at necessarily, he doesn't have the luxury of time to kind of get the best price that he wants. He needs to come up with cash. He's going to sell things that he has, for whatever, I don't know that he's necessarily giving them away, but whatever it is, he might not be getting the optimal price for these things because he really just needs to get some cash together so that he can buy what he really wants, which is this big field, and he doesn't want to lose this opportunity. When Shimon, the seller, then reneges, he's causing Reuven damage. Well, now what? He just sold things in order to be able to buy this field, and now you're reneging? So it causes damage. So yeah, if you cause somebody damage, the damages are collected from the edis, from the best field. So that is why, so says Rav Acha Ravika, that it could be talking about actually Shimon's best fields, because Shimon, by flaking, caused Reuven damage, and he's entitled to be paid back from Shimon's best fields. Holy cow. I'm running late. I am totally running late. What time is it? I'm just going to have to hold it here. Alright, I'm back, and hopefully my brain is better now. Alright, Reb Shimon Gamliel Omer, Lamdan Osan Shelo Yachzru Ketzad Kosev Lo Ani Ploni Ben Ploni V'chulei. Okay, I hope this is what we're up to. I hope that this is what we're up to. So we had said earlier, oh my gosh, I was recording this earlier, my head was elsewhere. Okay, so we so Shimon Gamliel says that if Shimon sells his field to Reuven for $1,000, how about this? 1,000 zuzis, old school, and Reuven pays him 200 zuzis, and so there was a shaila is who flakes. So Shimon Gamliel says, well, we try to avoid flaking. And instead, what we do is we turn the outstanding balance into a loan, and Reuven now has a debt to Shimon that he has to pay back. And he writes a document, says, "Hey, it's now a loan," and then there's a kinyan, and Reuven, pays the balance over time. So time the chosav lei hochi ho. So the implication being that according to Shimon Gamliel, the kinyan only happens once the document is written, right? Keilu, when Reuven pays the 200 zuzes, it's not yet his field. Field? Yeah, we're talking about a field, right? So, right, only after he writes this document that talks about how the outstanding 800 is going to be a loan, at that point, then it's the kinyan happens. But halokas of Achi, if they didn't write this document, lo kani, then there's no kinyan. V'atani, but we learn in the Brayso, no yisine rovin lachaveroi. Okay, so somebody gives a collateral to his friend. Okay, so if Reuven were right, so Shimon selling his field to Reuven gives a collateral to Shimon. All right, v'amar lo, and Reuven says to Shimon, im ani chozer bi, if I flake, ervoni machul lach, so you can keep my collateral. V'hala omer, and Shimon says, im ani chozer bi, if I flake, echbo l'cha ervoncha, I'll give you twice I'll give you back your collateral 2 times over. So it says Rabbi Yossi, okay, both stipulations, right? Everything that has been said is valid. Even Shimon saying, and if I flake, then I'll pay you twice as much. That's also valid, right? Because Rabbi Yossi says asmachta kanya, even though it's a theoretical that's a little bit outlandish, but nonetheless, asmachta kanya. All right. Yehuda Omer says, "Rabbi dayo sheyikne kineged ervono," that there is a kinyan kineged the erovon. So if the erovon is worth 200 zuz, right? So then he would be kone 200 zuz worth of the field, if I'm not making a mistake. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel b'midvar murim. Says of Shimon Gamliel, when do we say this? Bisman she'omer lo ervoni yikon. Specifically when he says that my collateral will make this kinyan. So meaning Reb Shimon Gamliel says that when Reb Yehuda says that he's only kona the field kineged the collateral. So if the collateral is worth 200 zuzes, so he's only kona 200 zuzes worth of the field. So that's when, says Reb Shimon Gamliel, that's when he says ervoni yikon, that my collateral will be kona the entire field. And says Rashi, the Amar le ervoni yikon yigna kol, that this collateral will be kona the entire field. And Shimon's like, wait, no, I'm not selling you the entire field for this collateral. So in that case, he's only kona the amount of a portion of the field equal to the value of that collateral. Aval, however, and here's the kicker: Machar lo sada be'elev zuz. If Shimon sells the field to Reuven for 1,000 zuzes, v'nosen lo me'em chomesh me'u zuz, and Reuven pays 500 zuzes. I mean, he doesn't pay the full 1,000; he pays 500. Kana the field belongs to Reuven. He's Koneh. Even though he didn't pay the full amount, he's Koneh nonetheless. And then, eventually, Reuven has a debt to Shimon. Eventually he has to pay back the debt to Shimon. So meaning, what's the dealio? Earlier, Reb Shimon Gamliel said that you have to write a contract that says, that we're making the outstanding balance into a loan, and then there's a debt that needs to be paid back over time. Yet over here we're saying no contract is needed. If he pays 500, pays 500 zuzis, or could have been 200 zuzis, whatever it is, he gets the entire field, and he just needs to pay the balance, the outstanding balance. So lokasha haduka'ayil v'nofik azuze, or the loka'ayil v'nofik azuze. So it depends. It depends. If Shimon is really nagging Reuven for the money, in the case where right. So meaning in this case that we had just now, right, we were saying that once he pays the 500 zuzas, he's Koneh the whole field and it's his. So in our original case, though, he said just by paying the 200 zuzas, it's not automatically his. He would have to write a contract. So that would be in a scenario where Shimon is really nagging him for the money, right? Meaning Reuven pays 200 zuzas and Shimon's like, hey, I really need the rest of the 800 zuz. If he's really nagging him for the money, the implication is he's only selling the field because he's tied on, he needs the money for it, right? He's tied on cash, he needs money, so he's selling his assets, and he really needs the money, and he's not interested in selling it unless you're going to pay the full amount. And therefore, in that case, 200 zuzes would not be enough without a document. But when we say that once he starts, once he pays a portion of the money, he's already Koneh the whole thing. That's when Shimon is more chilled out, and he's like, yeah, no, he's like, he'll get the money when he gets it. So in that case, yeah, so Reuven is Koneh the entire field, and he just needs to pay it back, when he can. The Rava that Rava says, if somebody sells something to his friend and he's really nagging him for the money, lo kani. So there isn't going to be a kinyan yet, because the fact that he's nagging him for the money means he really needs the money, and he's not, right? He has no intention of there being any kinyan before he receives the money. Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? But if he's not nagging him for the money, so then he's Koneh, even though he hasn't paid the full amount. Rava says, a fellow who lends 100 zuzas to his friend, Shimon lends 100 zuzas to Reuven, ufrai zuzah, and Reuven pays him back 1 zuz at a time. Look, Peron Have. Look, Reuven is paying him back. There's nothing that Shimon can do about it. But Shimon's going to be broigis, because everybody knows, if you get paid with 100 zuz bill, so then, you put it in your wallet and you won't spend it so fast. You get paid in a zuz at a time, so somehow all those zuzes end up in stucca. Somebody gives you a bunch of agurot. What are you going to do with agurot? If you need 10 shekels and change, give me a 10 shekel piece. Don't give me, 7 singles and then another half agur, half a shekel and a bunch of 10 zagurots. What are we going to do with this stuff? They all end up in some kind of pushka. So there's nothing you can do. It's legal tender, but what you can do is you can be broigis. And to be broigis is not to be underestimated. He says, look, you're paying me back, but I'm basically forfeiting all the money. Well, what am I going to do with all these little change? How Gavra Dizovenle Chamoro Lechavre, a certain fellow, Shimon, let's call him, sold a donkey to Reuven. Ufashle chadzuzah. The donkey cost 100 zuzes. Reuven paid him 99. And Shimon's nagging him for that zuz. Yosef Rav Ashi v'kama'ayin bo. So Rav Ashi was trying to figure out, ki agav namai, kani or lo kani. No, Reuven paid him 99 out of 100 zuzes. Would he be kona the donkey in that case or not? Omer le Rav Motchi le Rav Ashi. So it says Rav Motchi to Rav Ashi, Ochi Omer Avimi me agronyo, mishmei de Rove. So it says, Avimi me agronyo, in the name of Rove. Zuze kizuze dami, velo kani. There's no difference. One zuz, 100 zuz makes no difference. If it's outstanding and Shimon's nagging him for it, there's no kinyan. Omer le Rav Achabre de Rav Yosef le Rav Ashi. Says Rav Achabre de Rav Yosef to Rav Ashi v'aminon, mishmei de Rove. But we say the name Rove, kani, ho ho ho. But we say in the name of Rava that a taka would be kone if there's only one outstanding zuz. Titagim shmaitech b'mocher sadeu mipnei ra'asa. Well, yeah, it would be kone in a scenario where he's selling his field because it's no good, right? So meaning if he's got this field that's shvach hamaisis, so in that case, if he sells the field for 100 zuz, and the person paid him 99 and he's nagging him, it's not because he needs the money and there's no kinyan. It's a fakir. It's that, he wants somebody to take this field off his hand, and it very much is a kinyan, but he also just wants to get paid and get this behind him. But in that case, it's not a matter of, I'm not selling this to you unless you pay me full. I need the money. It's more like, I want to get this field off my hands ASAP. Let's just please pay me full, and I want to get this behind me. Rashi says, right, that right, fakert, meaning he wants to get it off his hands as fast as possible, and the reason why he's nagging the buyer is just because he wants to get paid in full, move on before the buyer changes his mind. All right, says the Gemara. Pshito boy lizabune b'meyo v'loye ashkach v'zavim b'masayim. So certainly in a scenario where Shimon needed 100 zuz because he wanted to buy like a small field, but he couldn't find anybody to buy his field for 100 zuz, so he was forced to sell a bigger field that was 200 zuz. Right? Certainly in a scenario, right, if Shimon really just needs 100 zuz, and then because he wants to buy like a smaller field, but the thing is he can't find anybody to buy his field for 100 zuz, so he has to then sell a bigger field for 200 zuz, and he's nagging Reuven for the money. So clearly in that case, he was forced to sell the field. He's nagging him for the money. Certainly, he has no interest in there being a kinyan before he receives the payment in full. But what happens if the scenario was slightly different? It's not that he couldn't find anybody to buy his 100 zuz field, but he bought his zabuni b'mei v'lo ashkach v'yitorach habamashkach v'lo tarach v'zav b'masayim v'kayal v'nofak azuzei mai. What about in a scenario where there was that smaller field that he wanted to sell? Look, he couldn't find anybody immediately to buy the 100 zuz field. So what did he do? So okay, look, if you really wanted, if he worked hard, he could have found somebody for 100 to buy the field. But he said, I'm just going to sell the bigger field for 200. It'll be easier for me to sell. So the shaila is, what happens in that case? Is it kimocha sadeh u'mipnei ra'asa dami or lo? So do we say that, look, the fact that he was willing to sell the 200 zuz field means he basically, didn't think much about it, and so he sold it. So it's like, so if he's nagging, then that would not necessarily mean that it's not a kinyan, double negative. Meaning, even if he's nagging, it would still be a kinyan, because it's right. The fact that he was willing to depart with the 200 zuz field, even though he technically could have tried harder and been able to sell the 100 zuz field, so that means that he doesn't really care that much about the 200 zuz field. So therefore, if he's nagging, it would still be a kinyan, right? It's not that he's desperate for the money. Or do we say, no, the fact that he sold the bigger field and he's nagging for the money means that he really wants the money? Teku, ich weiß nicht. Socher sachamer vesakade v'chulei socher lein o maton. So the Mishnah had said that if a person is somebody trying to get in? 1 second. I don't know. We're almost at the end of the daf, so let's just try to finish the daf, and then I'll do some investigation. So we said that if somebody the Mishnah had said that if somebody had hired a donkey driver or a wagon driver, and these were talking about a situation of kol davar avud, something that will be ruined if they flake. So then he can hire somebody else, and if it's more expensive, then it comes out of their pocket. Or you could trick them. How much more can he? How much does he pay these other people more that he could take it on their cheshbon, that the flakers would be responsible to pay? Rav Nachman says up to the value of what they would have been paid. Rav asked the kasha to Rav Nachman. Wait, what? Yeah, that we have a brayso that says that it could even be 40 or 50 zuzes. I don't think that was our, So what do you do about that? Why are you only saying up to the value that they would have received? But it could have even be 40 or 50 zuzes. So Amalei Kitanyo, Haisha Boso Chavilu Liyodav. When we say 40 or 50 zuzes, that is if the workers came and they left their tools and stuff at the guy's house. So in the event that, because apparently the workers would come and they would leave that as a collateral or something. So in case that it I don't know, in case they flaked or whatever, I guess you'd be able to then they're his and you could sell them and use that to pay these other workers. So that is what we're talking about. What is that saying? Yeah, I think it's some kind of deposit or something. If they flake, then he can sell it and use that to hire the other people, and that's how it would be 50 zuzes or whatever. Alright friends, that was Daf Ein Zav, Masechet BavaMetzia. Hope you enjoy. Peace out.